My name is Jennifer J. Raffler, and I am your host for the Sol2Soul Global Summit. Learn the truth about our sun, how it heals us, supports our spiritual evolution, and more. Today we have an amazing guest, a hardcore truth seeker and spiritualist, someone who I have been following for years, Bernhard Guenther. Growing up in Munich, Germany, Bernhard moved to California in 1994 to study drums and percussion at the Percussion Institute of Technology in Los Angeles. His exploration into rhythm and music became a journey of self-discovery and healing, which led him to bodywork and the healing arts. Being very emotionally sensitive and battling depression throughout his life, Bernhard faced his shadow and fears. His personal healing process also inspired him to explore the mysteries and hidden knowledge surrounding our planet and humanity's origins, questioning the roots of what constitutes reality, and how social and spiritual conditioning impacts upon our collective and individual search for truth, fulfillment, and happiness in all aspects of life. His website, Piercing the Veil of Reality, is a wide-range collection of articles, films, and interviews, talks, ranging from spirituality, shamanism, psychology, self-work, esotericism, history, and the occult and hyperdimensional realities. Bernhard feels that to make a shift in consciousness, we need to do the work to separate truth from lies, both within and without, and to bring the darkness to light while making the shadow conscious, so that we can truly heal, evolve, and grow, living up to our full soul potential and aligning with our individual purpose. Bernhard currently lives in Topanga Canyon, California, and works with individuals from all walks of life, helping them in their path of healing and wellness. He also hosts transformational retreats, webinars, and workshops. Please join me in welcoming the amazing Bernhard Guenther.
Thank you. Awesome. Hi, Jennifer.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
For having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. And wow, I'm blown away. And I am so excited, as you can tell and everybody else can tell by now, to have you, especially on this topic of the sun. You know, I've been following you for a couple of years, and I know you don't write very much on the sun in particular, but I really wanted to get your perspective and your knowledge, your ideas about the sun and how it can heal us and how it supports our spiritual evolution. Also possibly touch upon the moon and the relationship that's there between, or maybe not, with the sun. So for your healing experience, your own personal transformation, how did you use the sun? Did you incorporate that in any type of protocol for your own healing?
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to when I first moved to Southern California, LA, right? The sunshine state. The sun shines here a lot. Back in '94, and you know, I moved here for various reasons and whatnot. But you know, me first of all being European, and then kind of, you know, getting more into esotericism, doing my inner work, the whole matrix thing, I could never really truly relate, so to speak, to Californians and whatnot.
Understood.
So I realized more, and then I moved outside LA in Topanga Canyon. It's beautiful out here. And then I realized more and more, like, the reason why I'm actually here is because of the weather and the sun. Like I just realized it too when I go back to Germany. I visit my parents in Munich, and I, you know, I always go back to good food, and you know, I love Germany. But then after a week or 2 weeks, and you know, I realized, like, you know, I almost become so spoiled here because the sun is shining all the time and take it for granted, you know, and how it affects me, just my mood and my energy. And then when I'm back in Germany, it's cloudy and rainy, and it's like everything is more, you know. So I'm always happy and glad to come back. I'm very grateful that I live here, actually, right? And it's really just about the land, the energy, and the weather. And especially in what I like about Southern California is it's more of a dry heat, right? So it's not like that humid. So it doesn't kind of like wear you out, or you get, you know, like lethargic and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
Right. And then obviously the combination of sun and water is big for me because I'm also, I love water, right? It's just the element I feel very comfortable with. So really, when it's summer here, or when it's warm, I'm at the beach every day, literally, like in the sun and then in the water and whatnot. And you know, the way I started incorporating it is also like before I was even aware or did more research into like the true benefits of the sun on multiple levels. I always just loved sitting in the sun, right? Just taking it in just made me feel good.
Yeah.
So now I have my daily practice because, you know, as I said, it's literally, I mean, it's kind of like good and bad at the same time here in Southern California because we had the whole drought, right?
Okay.
So we have less and less rain each year. So I almost feel guilty when the sun is shining. We do need more rain, and I love rain. Like I love it too, you know, not just much. So, you know, we had a bit more rain this year, but I mean, it's literally, you know, maybe 300 days a year with just sun, something like that. So my morning routine is really every morning I do my qigong and the meditation, usually outside, you know, under the trees. And then after that, I have a spot right out in the open overlooking the canyon where I sit in the sun just in my shorts and like just sunbathe, or just read a book, right? With no sunscreen, nothing at all. And just, you know, for half an hour, maybe like 20 minutes, my front, whatever, right? But that kind of like, you know, it's not like just about getting a tan or whatever.
Sure.
It's just, you know, I feel like it, you know, the rays and there's some energy, just really, it very much also energizes me, right? Like almost like a food source, you know. I notice
Absolutely.
the more sun I take in, the less I need to eat, for example.
Yeah.
So that's what I've noticed. And I've noticed also my immune system being stronger, you know, in spite of disease. And so all of that I noticed within me before I was actually verifying that through research, which also proves, you know, that, you know, on the basic physical level, the sun is good for bone health, for vitamin D.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Strengthens your immune system, right? It's also what I realized, and also it's also scientifically proven, helps actually to fight off and kill parasites and pathogens within you, right? And all of that. So I can definitely verify that out of experience, just that on the basic physiological level, right? And I feel, and also, you know, as you probably know, like a lot of people are vitamin D deficient, right?
Yes.
They just
And
don't
I'm
have
sure
it.
in Germany.
Exactly, especially in
Yeah.
the colder countries, or exactly those darker countries, so to speak. So it's just, you know, and then you realize more and more that, you know, the sun is the life giver. Without the sun, there would be no life, period.
Thank you.
You
Yeah.
know, it's basically it's the sun and water, you know. That's how organic life evolved, so to speak, on planet Earth, because of sun and water. That's it, basically, right? So, and then, so that's just on the basic experiential level, and yeah, and it really like, but beyond just like on the medical, like it also like, it lifts up my mood. I can totally tell, like I'm just more joyful, excited, motivated, right? And just very grateful just for the sun. I mean, and then, you know, you realize, well, then I've done more research as well. And then, you know, on what I've also experienced when I'm out in the sun, like I feel like beyond the physical benefits, how the sun just fills me up with light in the terms of just like, almost like downloading information, right? There's something that infuses the whole being. And that's very interesting because I had recently was watching these lectures by Rudolf Steiner. I'm sure you've heard of him, right? So he had, I haven't finished that lecture, but he's like about the mysteries of our evolution, right? And he talks a lot about the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon, the Trinity, right? And he had also issues with the Moon, so to speak, which we'll get to later. Not issues, but the Moon is not what most people think it is. But he talked about the Sun actually being also, because we only have, obviously, on Earth or in our physical body, in our waking consciousness, just this 3D perception. So we see just the material aspects, right? But, you know, every the earth is alive, has a consciousness, right, in itself. So the sun is also alive. It is actually a being.
Yes.
And Steiner talked about that the sun is actually also an expression on the 3D level of these light beings who already like evolved to a much higher level, right? And that they support, you being supported by them, and like, or can literally download information by exposing yourself to the sun.
Yes.
Right? But it depends, obviously, it's not just like, it depends on your level of being and your receptivity and whatnot, but I can definitely relate to that, and I feel it happens more on an unconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
But this, this consciousness, this aliveness of the sun beyond just like, the physical aspect of the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, there's no way you can prove it scientifically. That's beyond. That goes into esotericism and gnosis, right? But the ancient mysteries have talked about this as well, right? As the sun is a true life giver in many, many different aspects.
Yes, and they're not saying that about the moon.
They're not saying no, quite the opposite. So, so the moon is a whole, many people, like, myself included in the past, see the moon as the counterpart of the duality, right? A lot of people associate the sun with the male principle and the moon with the female principle.
Yes.
Right. So myself, again, I'm not taking myself out of the equation, right? And I used to be even participating back in the days, in my rave days, in full moon, rave parties out in the desert, taking acid and mushrooms and howling
on the beach with a bonfire.
Exactly. So, and there's something beautiful about the full moon. But there's also something mysterious and weird about it, what I've noticed as well. And then through my own also realizations, experiences, also research into deeper esotericism, including like paganism and like all these ancient teachings, which a lot of people follow this day and age, but they have become very distorted, right? In terms of, the neo-pagan, neo-Wicca, whatever people, like the whole like earth spirit teachings, what people do with their rituals and ceremonies for the earth, for the moon, for the sun, whatever. A lot of it has become distorted for obvious reasons. When you look back, what my work is about, the so-called matrix control system and the suppression of knowledge and how people are being controlled. You see it the same with the sun nowadays, how like there's a lot of fear-mongering about the sun, right?
Yeah.
Don't go to the sun, take these, put on the sunscreen, which we know now has been also scientifically proven that the sunscreen is actually a lot of cause for skin cancer, of all this chemical shit that's in there.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I'm as white as it gets. I'm a German, 100% German heritage, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I'm sitting in the sun, I don't put any sunscreen on anymore at all, right? My body, but it's also, you got to be wise about it. It's not like I'm under the sun for like 5 hours straight during noon, you know what I mean? It's just in doses, well, right? So these
you're out first in the morning. That's the ideal time to do sun gazing, real close to sunrise or sunset. It's like you're getting a little bit of UV, but you're not getting the amount that you would be getting at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably built up a tolerance with your melanin over.
Exactly.
You can sit.
Definitely. So I've noticed that, especially now living here. I mean, I've lived half my life in Southern California, 22 years now, and I've become a wimp too. I used to grow up in Germany, and now if it's below 60 degrees, I'm like, oh, it's cold. So you see this a lot, like here among the ozone layer is thin, like watch for the sun. And even with sunglasses, I hardly wear sunglasses too, because sometimes when I drive in my car, it's normal, but I feel like if people are so addicted to sunglasses, and the sun has also benefits for the eyes, right? Yes. And if you wear too much sunglasses, you actually make your eyes weaker, right? And even more sensitive to light all the time.
Yes.
Right. So there's that as well, for example.
Yeah. And if you go to Walmart, for example, and you buy a cheap pair of sunglasses, it has 100% UVA, UVB block.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter where you go, they're trying to block the rays, put the sunscreen on,
exactly.
The sunglasses, and, run and hide and stay under the tree.
You know what's interesting? It reminds me now, one of the great benefits of the rays of the sun are the far infrared rays, right? That kind of really like heat you up from the
Penetrate.
inside. They
Yes.
go penetrate deep and kind of make the cells vibrate, so you create friction within, and that's very healing heat, and it detoxifies the blood,
Hmm.
actually oxygenates the blood, kills pathogens and all of that. And that's actually also the benefit of a far infrared ray, the sauna,
Sauna. Yeah.
right? And I just recently bought last year, I don't know if you heard about the amethyst biomet.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Have
Yeah.
you heard about it? Yeah, it's amazing. Like usually it sounds kind of woo-woo, like what amethyst biomet, but a good friend turned me on to it, and he's like, I can trust him. He's like a health nut, right? Like a health tech out there, but he's also very discerning. And it's very interesting. It's like this 12-layer mat. On top of it is also literally laying on a bed of amethyst crystals. But it's very complex other layers of crystals, and it's like it works like a heating pad, but it's not your normal heating pad. So you plug it in, and it creates heat, but it
Mhm.
creates the heat is created via creating far infrared rays, right? And through the amethyst crystals, even more intensified. So you lay on it, and it also creates negative ions, right?
Mm,
And it's an amazing healing tool. I use it because I do massage body work. My clients lay on it, and they love it,
I
right?
bet.
And it's not like your usual heating pad, because it actually, I run there's also technology that it actually protects you from EMF rays, but it
Okay.
works, it kind of simulates the far infrared rays from the sun, right, that penetrate deep into your body.
Okay.
And that's what I've noticed when I put a session on the far infrared ray, like I feel similar afterwards, like after I have been in the sun.
Oh, wow.
Very interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is indeed.
the real thing is always better, but that's kind of like great add-on for, like, also for anybody who has not much sun in wherever they live, right?
Yeah.
They get the benefits of those good rays, right?
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, I never tried one myself personally, but I did research it a few years back when I was ill myself. I just never ended up buying one, but I'm glad to hear that it's very helpful to yourself and to your clients. That's amazing.
And they have developed the technology there. It's been out since the mid 90s or something, so it's definitely a good
Hmm.
thing. But again, going back to the sun, it's, again, it's about these good the far infrared rays, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
UV rays, or rays, yeah, of course, is always, it depends a lot. It depends on individuality, right? And like many things, obviously, more darker skinned people can have it absorb the sun easier or whatnot. But even I'm a good example, like you said, that adjusted
Yeah.
to, that I'm not like, I don't really get sunburn anymore
Mm.
at all, right? Going back to the moon.
Yeah, you wrote a beautiful article, The Esoteric Significance of the Moon in the Matrix Control System. And you touched upon how the moon is not related to the sun at all.
Yeah. So
And
that goes deep into many, many different topics. One of it is the matrix control system. So for anybody, it's probably would be a lot to lay it out here, but anybody who watches this video and of your audience can go to my website, veilofreality.com, and
mhm,
there's a lot about that. It's more that
yes,
there's more to this reality in the world than we are aware of, and we're also not the main show here, so to speak. There are
yeah,
hyper realities, hyper dimensions, and other forces that act upon us and act through us, right? And our official history is basically alike agreed upon. There's so much more mysteries and ancient civilizations and knowledge that has been suppressed in many ways, right? But more and more that's coming up ties also into Atlantis and Lemurian times and all of that. So as I did more research in esotericism, it was very interesting that the ancient true esoteric teachings from different cultures and whatnot had a very different understanding and perception of the moon than we have nowadays.
yeah.
For them, the moon, um, is almost like the greatest secret in esoteric lore, because the moon is not what we think it is.
Mhm.
So the basic level, if for example, the ancient cultures and even like ancient indigenous tribes, did not have, they had ceremonies around the moon, but not to worship the moon or celebrate the moon. Quite the opposite, to protect themselves from its quote unquote evil influence.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It was exactly, and that's the true, like, and then it has been turned around and suppressed, all these pagan, like we see nowadays, like people just having moon ceremonies, celebrating the moon and all of that. But there's something else at the moon, and I felt this as well, this weird energy, right? There's something, and then it
Something's not right.
Something is just not right, right?
Yeah.
And then did more research, and then realized more that I mean, there's different quote unquote theories out there as well, but the point is like that the moon is also actually not a natural object, right? And has not always been around actually. And there's a lot of like in that article I quote in my article I quote another article of the Sungate calendar that was found, ancient Sungate calendar in Peru, that dates back to a time like around Atlantis, right? Or where Atlantis was supposed to exist. And this calendar was interesting. It didn't show there was no moon back then, right? And it seems like that the moon was introduced later. And, and this author made also the claim, like, I look in, well, which is far out from many people and sounds like a sci-fi movie, but may have been like pulled in or created by quote unquote alien forces, so to speak, as a control station, right? To have control over humanity. And that's, man, that's a whole topic on its own, the whole alien UFO topic, right? And ancient aliens and whatnot. Sure. And when I imagine that people probably right away think of Star Wars and the Death Star, but that's not how it works. It works on hyperdimensional, non-physical levels, right? And then you look at the other esoteric material, like predominantly Gurdjieff's work, right? Of the fourth way teaching. He's a fascinating esoteric master. And his work is really profound, combining like ancient Egyptian mystery teachings, Sufism into esoteric Christianity, the truest Christian teachings way before the church corrupted it and turned it into religion. And he formed his own, but he also talked, based on his own realizations and resources, that he literally said that the moon feeds off of humanity, that humanity is food for the moon, right? And keeps humanity under its mechanical influence, right? And that's very interesting, they're saying that humanity is food for the moon. Food for the moon, because that ties into this hyperdimensional matrix control system. The topic of all topics of the shamans talked about, that the humanity is not actually on top of the food chain.
No, we're
not. So that's really going fringe, but food is not necessarily, we're not talking about physically, but certain emotions, certain frequencies, certain entities in non-physical realms feed upon that, right? And they keep humanity locked in this frequency present to feed, a lot of especially negative emotions, suffering, friction, like, all of that, it sustains them. Like it relates to the Hermetic saying, as above, so below. We are simply not on top of the food chain as it is,
Yeah.
The other forces acting on us, and the many different ancient teachings have talked about the same force, right? Be it the archons from Gnosticism, or from integral Sri Aurobindo and his amazing esoteric teachings of integral yoga talks about the occult hostile force, right? Or in Hermeticism, the Lords of Destiny, or even in Native American spirituality, Wetiko, that alien virus, right? Or esoteric Christianity talks about the general law that resides over humanity, keeps humanity locked, and acts upon anyone who tries to escape it, right? So you have the jinn in Sufism and Arabian mythology. So it's all, you can look at it any culture, and it also relates to the UFO phenomena nowadays, right? So all of that relates to it, and the moon has a very significant role in this. I mean, there's also interesting, like, so scientists have come out, and I quote them as well in my article on the moon, that the moon is not a natural object in the sense that it's actually hollow, right? And there's just some weird anomalies, and also that the moon is actually way too big to be a natural moon for the Earth. It's way too huge, right? To have been just a natural object, based on the official explanation of what the moon is and how it got to be there and all these things, right? So that's very anomalous too, but we don't question it, right? That's
No.
like we get used to it and we just accept the official explanation and all of that, right?
Of course.
And then you can go even deeper and get more into conspiracy about the whole, NASA Apollo moon landing. If that really happened, right? What's really going on in the moon? And if we've been there, why haven't we been there back? And like, what, so that's kind of weird too. And also the weirdness that we only always see the one side of the moon, right?
Yes.
Right? Constantly just this one face, and that's the dark side of the moon, right?
Yeah.
So the moon is this very mysterious in that sense, from an esoteric perspective. Actually, all these teachings, like Moraviev talked about it in Gnosis as well, about the moon, that part of esoteric work, self-work, is also to escape the influences of the moon. So that's really that's the ancient cultures knew that, how the moon has this control, and it's all, we're talking energetics, right? You see it already on then people like who are more atheist materialists, they, of course the moon has an influence. We see it with the tides, up and down, and we're mostly water, right?
Yeah.
There's this obvious, connection, but it goes way, way deeper, right? Beyond just because of the gravitational pull and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Something else. But it also shows that we're influenced, right? And and you see, like, even in like the lore and the fables of like the werewolf, archetype, right? When the man turns into beast at the full moon, or the vampire, there's always the moon somehow related, right? And so the moon, you see it even like in pop culture when you watch a horror film, like there's the full moon, right? So it is associated somehow with darkness as well. It's very interesting.
It is indeed, indeed. The light that's reflected from the moon, Boris I can't pronounce his last name.
Moraviev, yeah.
Moraviev, okay, thank you. He says that reflection is modified. So we're not getting, good sun energy. We're getting something else.
Exactly, and that ties into to another quote, Juliet Carter. She mentioned it really well. She had also this profound realization about how the moon is the trickster. There's something off, right? The sun is actually a true life giver, and I was talking to her, and she made a good point, which really clicked, that the moon, especially the full moon, we think it's reflecting. The moon is not shining, right? It's reflecting. The light from the sun, but it's not reflecting, like, from an esoteric, this perspective is actually stealing the light of the sun and then turning it in something else. So you're not getting the moonlight. Is not is not actually not beneficial.
Yeah.
Right. And that ties, you can go even deeper, like in the New Age, like everybody assumes, like with crystals, for example, like, oh, in order to clear and charge my crystal, I need to put them out into the full moon.
No,
you don't want to do that at all, right? So, but people just, that's what I mean with this neo-Wiccan, New Age, pagan practice, which people just go to Barnes and Nobles and read it and never dive deeper and realize how these practices have been distorted.
Yeah.
Right. It also ties into the assumption that a lot of people, especially women, associate the moon with the feminine principle, right? Which it is not. And that's a tricky topic, because I got attacked for that, for my moon article, especially by women as a man, because women feel offended because they have a close relationship to the moon because of their moon cycles, right? So there's
I'm not going to attack you, so be with you.
But that's very interesting. But then you can go deeper than that as well, which I have, again, Juliet, who I quoted her from her book World Bridger in that article as well, and she made a good point. And I'm glad she made the point as a woman, because that goes deeper again into the hyperdimensional matrix and how it's been modified from our original genetic blueprint, right? That we assume, for example, especially women assume that it's like the moon cycle is natural, right? That you're supposed to, quote unquote, bleed, once a month, right? And then you have all these rituals behind it and whatnot. But from this really esoteric perspective, when we really truly activated a true genetic blueprint prior to genetic modification, because these beings we have been like screwed with, manipulated. Women are not supposed to bleed once a month. It was never supposed to be like that, right? Because when this constant being able to reproduce, right? And when you have your period, it's also like, obviously, as you know, there's a lot of things energetically happen, and you actually lose life force and all of that, and it's very mechanical, right? So, so based from this, before the fall from Eden was also symbolized the fall from our original state.
Okay.
But before that, like, human beings were not meant to reproduce at will, like all the fucking time.
Like bunnies.
Nothing against children, but that's like also the manipulation to reproduce more and more humans for these forces to feed upon, right? And the same goes for men as well. As men, we're like, basically, I can create civilizations every day, right? Constantly, it's just coming, it's just going, and so and that ties into, everything interrelated to the distortion of sexuality, right? And that's this concept that has been rendered just to a reproductive system, right, so to speak. So it all ties together. There's all these mysteries, and people don't question it, right? So then we are like so mechanically influenced and have been genetically modified in ways from ours, also in regards to our the sexual energy, which is a whole topic on its own, right?
Another way to siphon energy.
Exactly. But it ties again back into the moon, right? So the moon actually is, like many people, especially women, assume, does not represent the feminine principle at all. That's
Thank you.
Duality. It's not.
Thank you.
The feminine principle is when you're going to go into the mother and the father, right? That duality is the father is the son. That's the male. The earth is the female. Is the mother. Right. The moon has nothing to do with it.
Thank you so much for saying that, because that's how I feel.
So, so now, like, I notice I've become more sensitive around the full moon. Like, there's also a lot of research in that article, and my colleague and friend Tom Montauk, he wrote an excellent article about the moon and relating to the hyperdimensional interferences of these occult non-physical forces. So when there's a full moon, especially on the full moon, the veil is thinned. And so these forces have more access, so to speak. So hyperdimensional interference and attack around the full moon two days before and after is very common, and I can sense it, I can feel it sometimes strongly. That's when people become lunatics, sort of cry out of people, cries of passion, and just people losing it, right? Just also, again, these forces want to create, this loosh, this emotional loosh, this frequency, which they feed upon, right? Again, it goes back to the esoteric saying of that humanity's food for the moon, and that's not an analogy, that is literal.
It's literal.
That's what people don't understand. A lot of these, it's not just a metaphor, right? If you go dive deeper and understand how this hyperdimensional matrix works, right? So, like, for example, there was this big, it was last year, the big solar eclipse, right, in the US.
I believe in August or so. Yeah.
Again, and there was all, traveling over the US, especially up Oregon, and people like celebrating it and looking at it, but that's also solar eclipse. This is like the moon, the trickster's coming in front of the sun, basically blocking the sunlight, blocking the light force. And then you look again into, the ancient esoteric teachings, or even like indigenous culture, even just the Native Americans, it's actually well known, and you can look it up. I think it was the Apache, like during a solar eclipse, they don't celebrate, they don't worship at all. They stay very calm and don't go outside, no working, no celebration or nothing, right? Because they realize, again, also that during the solar eclipse, the life force, the life giver, is being blocked by the trickster. So do not have any ceremony. And then here you have, like, we're like festival, solar eclipse festival,
Yeah.
Like, it's almost, it's a trap of agreement. Like, you're worshiping, like worshiping a false god, so to speak, almost, right?
Yes. All part of programming again.
And also regarding to, like, the sun of being the true life force, like, all the religions actually, it's all about sun worship, like Christianity, right?
Yes.
And the whole story of Jesus, which a lot of people take literal. It's not literal, it's astrotheology, right? The Son of God is the sun, literally, right? And, when during Christmas, right, when Jesus was born, in the story from a virgin, but Christmas also symbolizes basically just, the sun. The winter solstice, right? When the
Yes.
sun goes down and then it's reborn, in the with Virgo and the three kings also symbolize a constellation, right? So it's just astrotheology. It's just a symbolism, right?
Yeah, and they put Christmas,
Exactly.
4 days later.
Exactly. 4 days later, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it is actually like it's because the sun kind of like basically goes in underground on the 21st, and then 3 days later on the 25th it's reborn. So the sun symbolizes Jesus,
Okay.
or Jesus symbolizes the Son of God. So it's all sun worship, actually, if you look into it, right? What Christianity is based on, and that ties. And people can research on themselves and look into astrotheology, how this all relates to the sun, right?
Regarding the sun, do you feel like that activates what has been called our junk DNA?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel definitely that helps for DNA activation, light infusion, absolutely.
Okay.
But it's not just like it's not like you lay in the sun and then you get like activated and ascend. There's more.
No, we're still here.
Exactly. So, or like even awaken. It's just like I think it helps in the process, and the more you engage in the esoteric work, awakening process, and all of that, the more the sun has a positive effect on you. You know what I mean? It's like vice versa. Like you got to also kind of prepare your vessel to able to receive,
Okay.
these more positive effects to activate DNA and all of that. So it's a two-way street. It's also about how receptive you are.
Okay. And how do you feel about chemtrails?
Yeah, that's that's quite well known, proven, phenomena this day and age, geoengineering. And regarding to the sun, like besides like poisoning us, with all kinds of chemicals, they also use geoengineering to block out the sun.
Yes.
Rays, the healthy rays. That's what's happening as well, right?
So that's how we know right there that it's really important, more than we're aware of, the fact that we're trying to block those rays.
Yeah.
It's a reason so we don't get sunburn? No, I don't think so.
No. Also to what they claim to protect because of global warming, and that's a whole rabbit hole and misconception.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing
Totally.
to do with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all population control. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bernhard, is there anything else that you can think of that you would like to add in relation to the sun?
No, I mean there's way more. Actually, I recommend the viewers or your audience, and you can post it as well to check out that article, right?
Yes, I will. I will definitely post it.
On the moon and then the Matrix control system that goes way deeper, and there's a lot of resource material, and then people can, check, make their own conclusions, so to speak. Right?
Yes.
The very fact is that there's a mystery around the moon, and it's not really what we think it is, whatever it may be. I mean, again, like there are many different theories of, but one thing I know for sure, the moon is not what we have been told in regards to official history or official science.
Yes, right? Yes. And the sun is a lot more than what we have been told.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Bernhard, for joining us today. I so appreciate you, and I so appreciate your work. And I cannot wait to share your work for a whole week, so that we can plant many, many, many seeds in our viewers' minds and their hearts and their souls.
Beautiful. And thank you for doing the project. It's nice to have support of the sun.
Oh, thank you. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you for the next interview. Thank you again, Bernhard.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.